So, this guitar is a 2005, 2006 Epiphone Les Paul. And if you've known these guitars, you know that, how do I say this nicely? They're not very nice. As a matter of fact, it's my opinion that Gibson and Epiphone's worst years were the early 2000s. But at the time, this was like the best guitar you could get as in the budget category, I thought. And it was given to me as a gift, and it is a guitar that took me from playing, just the cheapos to like actually having something you could really call a guitar. Now, if you don't know these guitars, chances are, if you're in my age bracket, you probably do. These guitars they played all right if they were set up right. They used good materials, relatively speaking. They were affordable, relatively speaking, but the electronics were just not good in them. And so back when I got this guitar, I was playing in a lot of shows, as kids do. I wasn't playing like, opening for anybody big, but, we'd play local coffee houses and bars and kind of stuff like that and do a little bit of traveling. And when we'd open for some bands that were like touring full time kind of deal, I noticed that they were playing these guitars, not this one specifically, but, they'd play like the Les Pauls from the same line and the SGs. And these were guys that should have been using Gibsons. And so I'd ask, like, why are you doing that? And they said, well, I could take this guitar that plays just like my Gibson and put all the Gibson guts in it. And I've essentially got a guitar I'm not worried about destroying for like a third of the cost. So high school me thought, hey, I could do that too to my guitar. And as you'll find out pretty quickly, I definitely couldn't. Let me show you what I mean. Right. First off, you can just notice right here, there's no, this thing, it's gone. Yeah, that's because I bought the wrong pickup selector switch and the threads are too short. So that should be your first clue as to how well this swap out went. These pickups, I have no idea what they are. They are some form of humbuckers. I bought at a guitar trade show, and we're going to find out what they are. They sound actually decent. Like, they're not horrible sounding humbuckers. But I don't know what they are. If you've ever opened up one of these too, like you'll notice that there's a harness kind of deal in there. Like there's a clip where like all the pieces clip together. I'm sure that was super easy for them in manufacturing, but for a high schooler back in the 2000s who didn't have access to everything we do now on the internet, it was confusing, and I definitely messed some things up. So what I wanted to do was I wanted to take this guitar, upgrade it by making it a push-pull, coil tap, whatever, and just, upgrade it all around. And I failed pretty hard. I was using an old 1970s, like, soldering gun, and it's a miracle I didn't destroy the pickups by demagnetizing them with it. But I didn't have the tools, and I didn't have the know-how, but I tried. So, for sure, I have ruined 2 of these pots, and I know I ruined at least 2 or 3 others when I was installing it because they wouldn't work at all. But the tone pots, I'm pretty sure I wired them up wrong or they're burnt up. Either way, they don't work. I did discover the volume on the bridge hasn't worked in years, or on the neck pickup. It works now. So something has it's contacting in there and it's working. I don't know why. The bridge is where things get really interesting. Okay, coil tap. It does nothing. I don't know if you could see that, but nope, messed that up. Somehow I wired this up so that it blends between something. I'm not sure what. It kind of sounds single coil to me. Yeah. So, we're going to fix this. All right, so we're going to go ahead and get started here. I got to take the strings off. It's kind of a bummer I just replaced the strings, but, got to do what you got to do. I typically use Ernie balls because I'm cheap, and they sound good. They get the job done. This guitar was kind of corrody until recently, so I've cleaned it up a little bit. I already put a new plastic pick guard on there. It hasn't had one for probably a decade or so. But surprisingly, like it's in relatively good shape. It's a guitar I've had a lot of use out of. You can see the spider's web that's in there. I mean, the harness thing, like it's confusing, and you can see the push pull pot. I mean, it's a mess, just in every single way. The wiring was bad, the soldering was bad, the parts were bad. Just it was bad. But I didn't know what I was doing. So the kit I got was from Tone Man Guitar out of Indiana. I got the 50s wiring kit. I got included the switch and all that because, as bad as I've messed up this guitar in the past, I didn't really want to do that again. I wanted to make sure most of it was good and that my soldering skills weren't the reason it doesn't work this go round. And so the kit was the cheapest, but still used the same parts as some of the other big names out there. And it was like just a guy in Indiana who puts it together. I'm pretty happy with it. So the instructions were pretty clear. There's no pictures, so I like pictures, but that's not really a complaint. That's just being immature. I went through and took it all apart. It started out by trying to desolder everything, keep as much end to the leads as I could. But you'll see by the end of it, like the soldering job was so bad on some of them, like the solder wouldn't melt. I'm not sure how that happens. I don't know what kind of solder I was using, but I'll show you all the guts here in a little bit. But I went through and desoldered as much as I could, snipped off what I couldn't, and then just kind of followed Tone Man's directions there. The board the kit, it comes in that board like that, so you just basically make sure you don't mess up, the order when you take it apart. You can see here all the gnarlied up stuff. Like you can look on the side of the push pull pot in the back. I mean, it was bad. It's really a miracle this guitar worked at all, but it has played a lot of shows. I loaned it out to buddies who needed a solid guitar, and they played with it. With this kit, it being an Epiphone, they used different size pot shafts back then. I'm not sure if they still do or not. I don't think they do. I think Epiphone's kind of got their act together lately. But I did have to make those holes a little bit bigger. It doesn't take much, so but it is important to have the right size drill bit. I think it was like a 3/8 drill bit. It's in their directions if you do this. But it's a stout drill bit. But I did have to go through and open up the holes a little bit to put that in there. And this is where we found what the pickups were. They're Tonerider Pickups, based out of UK. And so you can go to their website. You can see it here on the screen. These are rock song pickups. So these are supposed to be like a hybrid pickup. Like they're a little bit hotter than what you would expect a vintage pickup to be, but they're still have that kind of feel to them, which is why I like them. It's not what I would choose today, like if I was going to buy a pickup. But I went through and priced what I paid. I don't know if this was the price back then, but the set as it's on the website now is at $80. Like, so they're probably a Chinese made solid set, and I'm super happy with them. I'm not gonna be playing this guitar a lot. I don't really like. I'll say this later, but I don't really care for Les Pauls. But if my kid ever wants to pick up a Les Paul because he's going through a Les Paul phase, well, it does the thing. This is where you see I done screwed up. In the instructions on the Tone Man, it says don't pull out the switch so that you can tape some things and make it easier on yourself, and I didn't, so I had to do this the hard way, but that's okay. It went in, no problem. And so I've got the switch in, I've got the pickups back in, and now it's time to wire everything up. One of the things I did when I initially installed this was I tried to add the tap or the whatever, and that required exposing extra wires. Well, now I have to undo that. So on this first pickup, I just followed the directions. Everything went pretty smoothly. I will say that the Tone Man kit came for 50s wiring. The Rock Song wiring was a little bit different. I went with the 50s wiring because, I mean, that's the thing to do, right? So, but as far as what I'm doing here is I had to put the tap wires back together and cover them with heat shrink. So that's what I was doing there. You'll notice a blue piece of tape on one of the wires. That was just to make sure I knew which one I was doing so I didn't wire them up backwards, because I'm very capable of that. But then, yeah, I just kind of followed the instructions and put it all together. I just finished building a 5E3 kit, And so this was a little bit more of a challenge because it was so tiny. Everything was so small. But you can see here, I mean, it's not the prettiest job. If I paid somebody to do this, I wouldn't be happy. But, like it gets the job done. But over the course of that 5E3 kit, I will say this. As far as soldering tip goes, get the good soldering iron. And get the good lead. Get the leaded solder. Don't cheap out on that. Well, there you go. She's put back together, and I'm pretty happy with it. I mean, this is by no means going to be my main guitar. I don't really care for Les Pauls, but it's good to have. It's one of those iconic instruments to have around. And as my kids get older, I want them to be able to. They want to play that, okay, they play it, because there's certain players that played these, and everybody goes through a Les Paul phase, I feel like. But yeah, so my opinions, the pickups, they don't really sound that different. But it's cool to hear their full range now, where I can, use the tone knobs and use the volume knobs. It came together really simply, really well. I'm happy with the kit. It was pretty straightforward. Again, go check them out. Link will be down below. I'm not sponsored or anything like that. I paid for it, but yeah, go check them out. This was a pretty slick setup. And the pickups themselves, yeah, I mean, for being what they are, those are the value priced pickups that I bought in 2007. Yeah, pretty good.